Hey there on YouTube, it's Sal Paolantonio and Tim McManus, NFL Nation reporter for ESPN.com, covers the Philadelphia Eagles. People always say, Tim, Sal Pal, you know everything about the Eagles. And I say, no, Tim McManus knows everything about the Eagles. That's why we got him here for an NFL Nation report on YouTube. Let's start with Jalen Hurts. What do you know?
Well, he was at the podium today and asked how he's feeling, and he said he's felt better, which was, an admission for Hurts, who always just usually says, I'm good enough. But, the information that I've had lines up with that he's not at 100% yet, Sal, that he's still dealing with something in that SC joint, and the medical experts that I've talked to don't expect him to be 100% at any point in the postseason. But, we saw against New York, that doesn't mean he can't be effective. I mean, he was MVP level against the Giants, so there isn't concern there. It's just a matter of, if he takes a hit the wrong way, does that start to get aggravated, that type of thing. But he goes into this one in pretty good shape, but obviously a much better opponent this time around.
Right, much better opponent, but MVP level. I agree with you 100%.
Mm-hmm.
So they had 221 yards in their zone read run game. That's the most of their season this year in zone read runs against the New York Giants. So they were very effective running the ball, and that's because of Jalen Hurts' presence on the football field. There's no question about it. And they were dedicated to the run. To the exclusivity, and maybe a little upset, was A.J. Brown at the end of the game. He leaves the game. He's on the bench, about 5 minutes to go in the game. The Eagles are up 31-7. He's visibly upset. He's having a discussion with Nick Sirianni. What do you know about that?
Yeah, so we talked to A.J. Brown today, and Nick Sirianni, when I asked him about it on Monday, Sal, acknowledged that the frustration was over the fact that he wasn't getting the ball a lot in that game. And so Brown, when we were talking to him about it today, he wouldn't get into specifics about that moment, but we kind of massaged it and we're working around it. And he said that he doesn't feel like he's a diva, but certainly as a top end wide receiver, he's programmed to want the ball. He said, if you threw it to me 100 times, I'd want it 101. So that's the way that he's wired. And I think, that's understandable. But the optics, when you're up 31-7,
Bad optics.
5 minutes to go in the game,
Totally.
to go to the NFC Championship game, and you have to have a moment as the head coach to talk to your wide receiver about not getting the ball enough. That, that part, I'm sure doesn't sit well with everybody, but they seem like they moved on from it.
Well, let's look at the somewhat contradictory information that we had. Nick Sirianni says on Sunday night that A.J. Brown was dealing with something with his body, quote unquote. Now, on Wednesday, as we sit here now, 4 p.m. Eastern, the practice injury report comes out and A.J. Brown's not on it. No injury designation, and it's a projection because they didn't have practice on Wednesday. But if they did have practice on Wednesday, he would have been a full participant.
Mm-hmm.
So perhaps he's not injured, and perhaps he was really frustrated by not getting the ball. We'll see what happens on Thursday and Friday, and for the rest of the week.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a big thing to have it. And I think that's really an advantage. That's where it lies for Philadelphia, is the wide receivers versus the 49ers defensive backs. So you got to make sure that A.J. Brown is healthy in this one. I don't think that you're going to be able to rack it up on the ground like you did against New York, against D'Amico Ryan's front seven. I think really where the vulnerability lies, if there is one, is in that back seven. So I think that's going to be Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. Jalen Hurts is going to have to test that shoulder by throwing it down the field.
He certainly is, and he also has to get rid of the ball quickly because the Niners do have one of the best pass rushes, if not the best, other than the Philadelphia Eagles. They're going to have to figure out, is Nick Bosa on the left or Nick Bosa on the right? And Shane Steichen said on Tuesday in his presser, it's about 50-50, right?
Yeah.
He's listed on the depth chart as the right defensive end, but he lines up either way, and we're going to have to be ready for either one, and we get to the line of scrimmage, figure out where he's at all times, and perhaps run at him. Because when you look at the run-stop win rate, I think I said that correctly, on next-gen stats for Nick Bosa, he is at 21%, which is in the bottom 10th percentile among rush ends. So you can run at him if you want to.
And I think if you look at the Dallas Cowboys game as a good example, what they did to Micah Parsons is they read him. They essentially had him unblocked a lot of the times and made him freeze as a defender, instead of having him come downhill all game by reading him and making him indecisive, I think that's a good way to do it with Bosa. And my understanding is that he basically has the freedom to decide on a given play what side he's going to line up against. I think he's going to test it. Jordan Mailata's been dealing with a shoulder injury for much of the year, hasn't played maybe at the desired level, pretty good, but not maybe like superstar level. And then we know Lane Johnson is dealing with a torn groin. It's a torn adductor. Jason Kelsey's arguably the toughest guy I've ever met, and he said I had something similar to that, and I couldn't play through it. So that gives you an understanding of what Johnson's trying to deal with.
Yeah, so there's little things, and Avonte Maddox may be available, which will help the Eagles certainly against the 49ers. But I think in this particular game, for me anyway, it lines up the Eagles' defensive front against the Niners' offensive line, because they've got to get Brock Purdy under duress in this game from start to finish. And if you noticed, and I'm sure you did, out in San Francisco, the Niners' offensive line had all kinds of problems with the Dallas Cowboys front seven, and the Eagles is as good and maybe better in most situations rushing four, and I think the Niners will have problems. For him, Tim McManus, I'm Sal Paolantonio. It's the NFL Nation Report. NFC Championship game. We're at NovaCare facility, middle of the week. Report on those Philadelphia Eagles. Timmy, thanks for joining us.
Anytime. Championship week. Let's go.
Let's go in South Philly.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.